Alright, hi everybody. What we're gonna do is just go ahead and look at some messages. Now, first message we have is down at the bottom. We have "Let us find the truth." Now, let's blow that up. It's Control or F5. It's Control. Alright. So, he said, "So far what I have found upon your request. Let us find the truth" is a researcher, and he finds great information. And what we have here is an article that shows the migration of Khazar into Japan and the lost city of Mu. What you see in the title bar, though, is actually more interesting. I'm going to go back to that and read the title bar. The migration of Khazar Jews into Japan, where Judaism morphed into Shinto, and the lost city of Mu. Now, a couple of weeks ago, that was sent to me, and here's another one that was sent. I don't know who sent it, but maybe if we go through some of the mail, we'll find out who the sender was. And then we have the Hata, which Brother Saint Mike has shown me, which I believe as well is Hittites, either a branch or the whole, moving into the area. So we have two different things saying two different people moved into that area. I believe this is the same one. Here Comes the Sun, the migration of Khazar into Japan. So those are the two that I had up. Let's see what else I had up. Tenju. I was playing around in the Google Translate with Tenju, the name Tenju, trying to figure out these bird things. Here we have another one that somebody sent us. Did a Jew teach Japanese their ancient religion? And it says in Joshua chapter 17, a certain Levite was hired by a man named Micah to be his personal priest over the graven image he had made. Later in chapter 18, the priest got recruited by the tribe of Dan to be their priest and their father, and he took the graven image with him. Okay, so it says another instance is found in 2 Kings where the Sumerians were transplanted into northern Israel, and the Lord sent mountain lions to attack them, and Assyrians sent Jewish priests to teach them the manner of the God of the land to stop the attacks. And the priest taught them that they should fear the Lord, but they then had an ad hoc religious jumble serving both their old God and the Lord. It says, howbeit every nation made gods of their own and put them in the houses of their high places, which the Sumerians made, every nation and the cities wherein they dwelt. So they feared the Lord and made themselves of the lowest of them priests of the high places, which sacrificed for them in the houses of the high places. They feared the Lord and served their own gods after the manner of the nations whom they carried away from thence. Isn't that the same thing that's going on here in America? They preach God but serve Jesus, the God of what? War and commerce. So these nations feared the Lord and served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers, so too they unto this day, as did their slaves, as did their captives, as did the children of Israel that are captive in the... Never mind. Someone has compiled research, Reverend Aramasha Kubo, author of Lost Tribes of Japan, showing interesting similarities between Shinto and the native folk religion of Japan, the native folk religion of Japan, and the worship of the true God as found in the Bible. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, this isn't some American saying this or that. This isn't, this is some other person showing lost tribes of Japan saying, I don't believe this person's American. That looks like a click-on thing. Let's see where this person was taught, where they were educated from. Is a Japanese Christian pastor. Okay, so he's a Christian pastor and he's from Japan. So that's not that great. But he's talking about the true God found in the Bible. So these things that equate here isn't talking about these people worshiping other gods and Jesus. These things are other gods and the Creator. Again, this led the researcher to conjecture that the Japanese may be a lost tribe of Jews. All right, so here we have Mysteries of the Bible, another article, Lost Tribes, Japan, and this is where one leads to the other, right? And is Shinto a foreign religion imported into Japan? And then they have their humanistic image of Tengu again. Alright, so let's get back to mail again. Alright, so we have somebody called Literally Concerned. Have you ever heard of Hendra Lax? I thought you could do some research or story and present it. No, I haven't heard of Henrietta Lax. Helen Lawson was an African American. She's an American Indian woman who was unwitting source of cells from her cancerous tumors were cultured by George Otto Gay to create the first known immortal cell line. Oh wow. So look at it. This is known as Hela cell, or the Hela cell. The very Hellenistic thing. So, this person, Henrietta Locke, was born Loretta Peasant on August 1st, 1920 in Roanoke, Virginia. Interesting, it'd be Roanoke, right? To Elza and Johnny Peasant. Her family is uncertain how her name changed from Loretta to Henrietta. Her mother died giving birth to her 10th child in 1924. Henrietta's father felt unable to handle the children after his wife's death, so he took them to Clover, Virginia, and distributed the children among relatives. 4-year-old Henrietta, nicknamed Henny, ended up with her grandfather, Tommy Lax, in a 2-story log cabin that had been the slave quarters of her white great-grandfather's and great-uncle's plantation. She shared a room with her 9-year-old first cousin, Dave Day Lax. In later life, at the age of 14, Lax gave birth to son Lawrence, in 1939. Her daughter Elsie was born, carried her first cousin Lax. At the end of 41, their cousin Fred Garrett convinced the couple to leave the tobacco farm and have day work in Bethlehem steel mill. Day moved to Maryland, Bethlehem, and I think that's funny. Somebody said another place is called something after this whole Jesus stuff in Maryland. Henrietta joined the children, diagnosis and death, and Lax went to Johns Hopkins Medical Center. She felt a knot inside of her. She was told her cousins about the knot. They assumed correctly that she was pregnant, but after giving birth to Joseph, Henrietta started bleeding abnormally and profusely. Her local doctor tested her for syphilis, which came back negative, and referred her to Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins was the only choice for a hospital since it was the only one near them that treated black patients. Howard W. Jones, her new doctor, examined Henrietta and the lump in her cervix. He cut off a small part of the tumor and sent it to the pathology lab. Soon after, Lax was told that she had a malignant epidermal carcinoma of the cervix. Following Odo Gray's death in 1970, colleagues write a tribute discovered that Lax's cancer had been misdiagnosed and was actually adenocarcinoma of the cervix, which was a common mistake at the time, and the treatment would not have differed. Lax was treated with radium tube insert, which were sewn in place. After several days in place, the tubes were removed, and she was discharged from Johns Hopkins with instructions to return for an X-ray treatments as a follow-up. During her radiation treatments for tumors, 2 samples of Henrietta's cervix were removed, the healthy part and a cancerous part, without her permission. The cells of her cervix were given to Dr. George Odo. These cells eventually became the HeLa immortal cell line, a common used cell line in biomedical research. The significant pain and without improvement, Lax returned home on the 8th for a treatment session, but was asked to be admitted. She remained in the hospital until the day of her death. She received treatment and blood transfusions, but died of uremic poisoning at the age of 31. And what is that? What is uremic poisoning? Acute kidney injury, so the buildup in the kidney. Alright. Now, her legacy: the cells from her tumor were given to George Gay, who discovered that Henrietta's cells did something that he'd never seen before. They could be kept alive and grow. Before this, cells cultured from other cells would survive for a few days and then, of course, die. Scientists spent more time trying to keep cells alive than performing any actual test on them. But some cells from Lax's tumor sample behaved differently from others. George Gay was able to isolate one specific cell, multiply it, and start a cell line. Gay named the sample HeLa, or HeLa, after the initials Henrietta Lax's name. As the first human cells grow in a lab that were immortal, they do not die after a few cell divisions. They continue to divide. So what you're talking about here is rejuvenation. This is why it's called an immortal cell. When you watch those Wolverine movies and they show you how Wolverine replenishes his skin after it's been ripped, or his flesh repairs itself even when it's burnt down to his metal bone, it would be an immortal cell that duplicates or replicates itself until it creates the original specimen. So demand for HeLa cells quickly grew since they were put into mass production. So, wow. Henrietta's cells have been mailed to scientists around the globe for research into cancer, AIDS, and effects for radiation and toxic substances, gene mapping, and countless other scientific pursuits. HeLa cells have been used to test human sensitivity to tape, glue, cosmetics, many other products. Scientists have grown some 20 tons of her cells. So if you take one human and you take one microscopic cell and start regrowing it, it is now the size of 20, or the weight of 20 1,000-pound cars. Since everybody knows cars weigh a couple of ton, cheap cars weigh around 1,000 pounds. They've grown about 20 cheap cars worth of her flesh. Ah, boy. And there are almost 11,000 patents involving her cells. In the early 1970s, a family of Henrietta Lacks received numerous phone calls from researchers who wanted blood samples from them to learn about the family's genetics in order to combat widespread contamination being used by the HeLa cells and other cell cultures. The family questioned this, which led them to learning about the removal of Henrietta's cells. So could you imagine this? The world's been repopulated with your ancestors' DNA for any type of research you can imagine. The cookies, the crackers you eat, from the gel you put in your hair, from what you shave with, anything you can imagine. Your ancestors been technically tested on. Oh wait, she's dead. It's just her cell regrowing, trying to what? Regrow itself? It's really weird. All this finance these people have put forth and made off of your family's back, literally. I mean, literally. And then they call you the live DNA sample and they fucking want more. I mean, talk about a pound of flesh. You know, like, they've grown it into 20 ton. Just think, if they don't like you, they can regrow your flesh and clone you and kill you again. And again. And again. Until they run out of money, or they're just bored with doing it. Recognition. How do you give somebody recognition for illegally taking someone's cells without them knowing? And that, oh boy. Yeah, well, thank you, literally concerned. All right, next we have Chazawa Banyashrala. And he says, Shalom, please watch the teaching, and once you verify the info, please send it to all the Israelites you know as well. Thawada Shalom. And he leaves a link. And this is called The Lesson. Part 1. Olmecs, Toltecs, Natchez, Igbos, Bantus, Black Caribs, Negroes equal Israelites E1B1A. I'm not sure about the E1B1A because they push that towards Africa, but if we're all linked through E1B1A, we're just all linked through that categorization. Gotta get around that, huh? But again, I'm not sure about E1B1A. I am sure about this half of the sentence. This is the main lesson. This has been the lesson. To keep teaching us we're Africans is insane. Now he says listen to Mongols, Tartars, Aztec, Incas, Indians are Aztec. See, now that's just silly, because Well, we'll just, this video exists. Watch it if you want. Olmecs are conquered. From my studies, Olmecs are conquered by the Israelites, who are called the Black Chinese. Hence, we are called Afro-Asian. You're on the right track. You have Aztecs over here. Montezuma is an Aztec king. When you go back to the image that's presented in the 1600s, it is a Negro image. So as Negroes are titled over here with everybody else, the Aztec should be titled over here. The Aztec, the Toltecs, nobody knows what happened to them, and the Aztecs started living on top of the Toltecs. So again, the Aztecs should be over here, and the Aztecs are considered Indian, and who's the other ones that are down there? It's the Mayans. The Mayans should be over here too. And those are under Indian classification. The Black Caribs, there is no other kind of Caribbean. So I don't, that's an oxymoron. So look, you guys know this video exists. It's not like I'm trying to, say it doesn't exist. I can tell from the title. I'm gonna have mixed issues about this, but here's the good part. I want you to listen close.
Shalom, Yasha It's your brother Kazak from the city of Riverside, California.
So they're in Riverside, California. So that means out in the west of this nation, they're starting to get the message, because this is the lesson. This is the lesson that they're teaching. But again, what happened to the Olmecs? They were overthrown, and you're told even through Afrocentric teachings, they melded in with the Mayan and the Aztecs, showing that the Mayan and the Aztec were related to some degree, but you can't tell unless you read their own language, and that's something I can't do right now. So I'm gonna leave that as it is. I'm gonna take this off, the Henrietta stuff. I'm gonna take that off, and that is Chazzo. Start this.
From the city of Riverside, California. Alright, we're going to be going into a study addressing the true descendants of the children of Israel, where they are in the earth today, who they were, and also fulfilling some prophecies of their dispersion. And we're going to be clearing up a lot of lies concerning the 10 tribes.
Alright, so if you want to take some time and watch that, it's there for you. As Persian says, check this out. Encourages some folks to learn about their own black history. So here we have a 9-minute video, and it is the truth of how slavery really ended in America. That's the name of the video.
Black history is taught like this. You started off as a slave, then white folks felt bad and decided to free you. Then civil rights legislation made you equal. And finally you achieved victory with Obama's election. The end. Of course that is ridiculous. That is the white supremacist version of black history. The end result of this miseducation is that black children are separated from their own people's legacy and historical achievements. Everybody in the world has the right to draw inspiration from their own people's legacy. And this right is robbed from black children because their history is actively hidden, distorted, and replaced with make-believe. For this video, we will carefully cover the facts on how black people became liberated from American chattel slavery. The miseducational system has taught us 3 gigantic myths about the freeing of the slaves. The first myth is that there was only some slave rebellions here and there, but not any kind of large-scale military resistance to slavery initiated and carried out by black men. The second myth is that any slaves who wanted freedom basically fled north to be granted freedom. The third myth is that the Civil War was the primary event that ended chattel slavery. The reality is that there was a series of battles, revolts, and rebellions that lasted from 1739 to 1858. This was the Gullah Wars. That is more than 100 years of warfare totally hidden from the American history books. A lot of this history was disguised as the Seminole Wars. First of all, the Seminoles were not a real Native American tribe. They were Native Americans allied with and often led by black Africans. Seminole literally means runaway. Maroon means fugitive. Gullah refers to the black Africans. The Emancipation Proclamation was a staged event, and it was designed to stop and historically hide the self-liberation process of Africans in America. Africans were brought into the Anglo...
Yeah, well, here you have this history lesson here, if you want to see it. And it still pushes that you're African, you know. Again, your forefathers signed the treaties, and this is the point of misleading you every step of the way. You know, I don't think that person is trying to mislead you, and the movie, I mean, the video is pretty good. I watched it a couple weeks ago. In fact, it gets better. And then the next thing I show you is going to get better and better.
American New World Order, and many of these Africans maintained the goal to kill, crush, and destroy white supremacy. 1739.
See, I told you that shit gets better.
Were brought into the Anglo-American New World Order, and many of these Africans maintained the goal to kill, crush, and destroy white supremacy.
See, this doesn't mean kill, crush, and destroy white people. This has to do with white supremacy. Now, I can't help that racist white people will defend white supremacy with their lives. But with white supremacy going on, that means that black lives do not matter. I think that's ironic that that title is used with them.
1739, the Gullah War begins. Carolina was about to pass the Security Act, which would require whites to be armed more often to prevent a slave uprising. So the slaves decided that this was the time to strike. About 20 of them went to the local store, stocked up on guns and ammo, killed the shopkeeper, and began the Stono Rebellion. The rebels marched, and as they marched, their following grew larger and larger. They chanted out liberty as they marched, chasing the slave owners, killing them, and burning their houses down. After the rebellion, South Carolina passed the Negro Act, which prevented a future rebellion by limiting the rights of the slaves. From that point in time until 1812, the Gullah were fighting continuous battles against the state militia in Florida. Spain was fighting against the American colonists for land in Florida. The Spanish started arming the Gullah and providing them with military training. The Gullah used this military equipment and training to defend their own free, independent black towns. The first black town in North America was called Garcia Real de Santa Teresa de Mose. It was built by the black man and officially recognized later by the Spanish Lieutenant General Montillano in 1738. This black town was a place that slaves could escape to have their own land and receive military training. 1814, Andrew Jackson defeated the Native American Creedy of Fort Jackson, which basically stole their land. He imposed on them the Treaty of Fort Jackson, which basically stole their land. Andrew Jackson defeated the Native American Creek Confederation. He imposed on them the Treaty of Fort Jackson, which basically stole their land.
Now, where's Fort Jackson? Now, you'd have to ask, if these motherfuckers is from Africa, how is it their land? You were already here in America when they came.
So Chief Sakafoka led thousands of his warriors to Florida and joined forces with the mighty Gullah Nation. The so-called Indian Wars were actually the Gullah Wars. General Thomas Jessup said, "Throughout my operations, I found the Negroes the most active and determined warriors, and during the conferences with the Indian chief, I ascertained that they exercised an almost controlling influence over them. This, you may be assured, is a Negro and not an Indian war."
Did you hear that? It was a Negro war, not an Indian war. You asserted control over the other nations as generals. And this is why they spend so much goddamn money into influencing you to killing your fucking selves. Now you got poor white people imitating you. I'm down, nigga. Now you got all these Babylonian nations over here. I'm down too. Down for what? They're telling you they're down for the goddamn rebellion, and they don't even know that's what they're telling you. They're down for you leading them. Up against what? White supremacy. Even white supremacy puts the poor white man in the shoes of the black man. When the black man is removed from a building, the other nations feel that void. They're just a Mexican. Ew. They're just a spick. They're just an Irish motherfucker. They're just... Ew. What do they call them? All the nicknames that the prominent white European has for every other race. Well, when you take the black out of the equation, that's what happens. And this is why these people that have been downtrodden and poor are saying to you constantly, I'm down. For when you rise up, you don't even know what they're telling you. You think I'm down to smoke or drink. You say, hey, you want to drink? I don't drink. But I'm down, and you still don't know what the fuck they've been telling you. These great white generals said, oh my God, the fucking worst thing to ever fight in the world is the black man.
So Chief Sakafoka led thousands of his warriors to Florida and joined forces with the mighty Gullah Nation. The so-called Indian Wars were actually the Gullah Wars. General Thomas Jessup said, throughout my operations I found the Negroes the most active and determined warriors, and during the conferences with the Indian chief, I ascertained that they exercised an almost controlling influence over them. This, you may be assured, is a Negro and not an Indian war. 1816, the Battle of Negro Fort. Negro Fort was a structure built by the British and occupied and led by black Gullahs. Andrew Jackson ordered Colonel Clinch to destroy Negro Fort. After they destroyed Negro Fort, Andrew Jackson ordered the torture of the leaders and the enslavement of the black captives. This was a historical turning point in Gullah military.
Did you see that? What is that? Is that Fuertes or is that F or P? Puertos Negro or Puertos Negro?
Leaders and the enslavement of the black captives. This was a historical turning point in Gullah military strategy. The Gullah leaders who escaped decided that they would never again use the British strategy of fighting from a fixed fortified position. They decided instead that they would return to using the traditional Gullah method of guerrilla warfare, which involved striking and vanishing. And your brainwashed shit tried to get you to understand. They tried to show you over and over again. You didn't want to hear the shit they had to say. You just wanted to act like them.
You know, you want to hear what they actually had to say. Why they show you U.S. government chasing black people and chasing niggas in the fucking wilderness? I mean, you guys don't get it. Never thought you'd see South Central niggas in the forest. And what did we get today? We got a message. We got a message from the niggas out west saying, hey, we know who we are.
Alright. Shalom, Yasha it's your brother Kazak from the city of Riverside, California.
Where's South Central? No, I don't know. I'm starting to see life imitating art. I'm not sure. Yep. So he's not talking about himself eating the swine, he's talking about them eating the swine, and their nickname for you is Jigaboo, and you come up from behind. So history repeats itself. The Gullah or guerrilla wars shall take place again.
Luring the enemy into strange areas. The forest. The pasture. The swamp. They had the advantage with decentralized warfare because they knew the land better. As more and more slaves fled south for freedom, thousands of U.S. soldiers died at the hands of the superior Gullah warriors. 1818, the Battle of Suwanee. A stretch of towns along the Suwanee River was occupied by a series of self-sufficient Native American and Gullah colonies. Once again, General Andrew Jackson came to terrorize and invade them. The Gullah and the Native American warriors, allied in the swamps, inflicted heavy damage on the invading army. Andrew Jackson was defeated by the Gullahs, however he fraudulently claimed the battle as a victory. After the Gullah warriors, Andrew Jackson came to terrorize and invade them. The Gullah and the Native American warriors, allied in the swamps, inflicted heavy damage on the invading army. Andrew Jackson was defeated by the Gullahs, however he fraudulently claimed the battle as a victory.
Go back to the video where I went to Washington the first time and went to the Indian Museum, and it tells you that the United States had to be able to force the Indians into the treaty, because if they didn't, they would not survive the next year. The Indians did not know that. The Indians fell for the bluff and signed the treaties, which prolonged the English stay. How long, you say? 400 years today. So let's go back to the messages. Alright, so we got to, if you are uploading for lesson Roman translation of Korean, they too follow the God of War, Islam, War of Religion. Let's see what this is. Islam 6-minute video.
Good morning, it's 29 December 2015, and we're going to talk about Islam. It's the religion of war. It was created to be that way. The Third World War, this is Albert Pike over 100 years ago. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenda of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and the political Zionists, state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a great social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly that all nations the effect of absolute atheism.
Nihilist. Remember, we did the definition of nihilist. The definition that they show of nihilist is not what a nihilist really is. A nihilist is a form of capitalist, someone that uses their wealth to transform themselves so that they are better, stronger, or more powerful than the average person. Today, you call those people superheroes or supervillains. That is a nihilist. When you look at the bat, or the things that the bat fights, like Ra's al Ghul combining sorcery to martial arts to make himself a better, stronger fighter to what? One day rule the world and destroy. That is a nihilist.
Origins of savagery and of most bloody turmoil, then everywhere the people will be forced to defend themselves against the world minority of the world revolutionaries and will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and then the multitudes disillusioned with Christianity, whose spirits will form that moment without direction and
Okay, now look, this is the writings of Albert Pike. This is the King Freemason at the time, the head of the Scottish Rite, head of one branch, one controlling branch, the branch of the South. So this is the head of the South writing this quote-unquote wicked prophecy. In this prophecy, he is telling you multitudes are delusioned with Christianity. Now you must understand, this is another person that has to bow down to the Pope. Christianity believes that God had a son with a fairy tale woman, and that this son is worth worshiping more than the one that created this son, or even us. That is Norse mythology of worshiping Thor over Odin. That has nothing to do with your Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew people wrote the Bible. They were the spokespeople for the Creator. The New Testament is the Greeks writing in place, the Romans writing in place, not Hebrews. They tell you the food laws are done away with. Aren't they the same ones that tell you that they overthrew the temple and forced everyone by sword to what? Eat a pig, which goes against food laws? Are they not telling you that they changed the law with a sword? Does the Bible not say that the world's given to the hands of the wicked? Christianity is wicked. It is delusional to think it is righteous. Multitudes are delusioned with Christianity.
Leadership and anxious for its ideal, but without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out into public view. A manifestation which will result in a general revolutionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time.
Do you understand that? Atheism being destroyed at the same time. Lucifer himself will be here and will force people that choose not to worship anything, he'll just kill them. We are at that point in history. It doesn't matter if it's 3 months, 3 years, or 30 years away. when God's looking down, it's still the same bracket of history. We have a chance to sculpt our part. We don't have to stay asleep. We don't have to let the next generation be forced to walk into the wilderness. It can be this generation. We don't have to be the people that war with these savages. We don't have to be the people that fill the FEMA camps. We don't have to be the people they're fighting over in a new civil war. All we have to do is leave. We can leave individually. We can leave as a group. We have willpower. We can leave. We don't have to wait for delusional Jesus. We don't have to wait for the real Messiah to come and destroy everything and expect for him to set us aside while everything around us is being set on fire. We can just leave. We can close our accounts. We can end our debt and leave.
These are the hopes of the Masons. To that end, we see that Islam was created by who? Roman transliteration of the Holy Quran. The Arab League of Nations uses the Roman laurels as their flag. So what did they create? At first, they followed the Old Testament. That was good. But Muhammad died and his brother took over.
You've got to be able to lay down the Old Testament so that man can have faith in something. That's how it all starts. The minute you get away from the Old Testament, that's when corruption begins.
And I believe he rewrote much of this. And that's believed by many people in Islam. The worst thing that could happen in Islam, people read the Quran and the Old Testament. Islam is the religion of murder. Abum 28 in the Quran says, Muhammad said, God sent the prophets. You did not listen. God sent Yeshua. You did not listen. God sent me to tell you his laws again. Now that doesn't sound a lot like murder, does it? Look what his brother did. Yeshua is the Son of God. Muhammad is the greatest messenger, according to both Muhammad and Buddha. But what are the precepts that Muhammad's brother rewrote? He wrote you can rape, marry, and divorce prepubescent girls, little babies, Quran 65:4. You can enslave for sex and work. These are the Quran references. You can beat sex slaves, Quran 4:3. You will need 4 Muslim male witnesses to prove rape. Kill Jews and Christians if they do not convert or pay the jizya tax. Crucify and amputate non-Muslims.
Well, that's not too much difference than Christianity, except for number 5.
Get rid of them. You don't need them. A Muslim is a Mohammedan, one who follows Muhammad. But I don't think Muhammad wrote many of these laws. You will kill non-Muslims to receive 72 virgins in heaven. But this is what they're taught now by the Romans and Americans in their mosques. You will kill anyone who leaves Islam. You will behead non-Muslims. You will kill and be killed for Allah. A verse of the sword. You will terrorize non-Muslims. You will steal from non-Muslims.
Well, that's a little bit outside of our scope. But we can see that's nothing to do with what we read, teach, or study. So, Sister Warriors sends us this. Hope you and your family doing well. I saw this and thought I would send it along. It's a place called Moab. Okay, now buckle up your seatbelts. If you're If you're not buckled in, you're gonna need it right now, because this is breathtaking. Let's discover Moab.com. Discover Moab. This is your biblical Moab. Negro Bill Canyon was named after Will Ganstaff, a black prospector and rancher who grazed his cattle here during the late 1800s. It is a lovely canyon cut into the Navajo sandstone by a small perennial stream that begins about 6 miles from the southwest shore of Colorado. Blah, 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 blah. Hiking length is 2 miles. Attractions: a year-round stream in Scenic Canyon, Morning Glory National Bridge, which spans 200 and here's a picture of the natural bridge. You can see, it's suspended over ground. You can walk over that, and it's kind of interesting, because it's Discover Moab. And this isn't Utah. I tell you to read the Bible and think about America, and you tell me when I'm drunk. This one is Barzel. Barzel is Hebrew for iron. Sure sounds a lot like Brazil. It's kind of interesting. It describes as the land stones are iron. What is the origin of the Hebrew word iron? It's Barzel. Alright. Please, okay, we gotta let us find this truth. Says please view.
Hey everyone, this is the last video for today for Saturday, December 12th.
What the
This is Race for Survival, and this article I left off with this one in the last video. And this article I actually was going to cover it about a week ago. And it's just funny how it always works. It's like it'll be like one of the most important articles that I wanted to include. I'll just kind of skip over because I have like 30, 40 tabs sometimes up here, and I'll just accidentally talk and I'll skip it. But for whatever reason, I didn't get to this, and I forgot about it. And then, thank God, White Genocide Project, they posted it. So I'll go through it a little bit more here. French court rules that the native white French do not exist. It says here it all started in 2010 when a rapper and a sociologist joined forces to publish a book and CD both titled Fuck France, the General Alliance Against Racism.
Now, you see what this picture shows? See what this picture shows? Bunch of black people. Now, if I type in, you know the game, we go to Google, we go to images, we go to white supremacy capital, go to images, type in French people. Computer, show me what French people look like through images. Now, this is French people. Okay? Now, all of a sudden, we have a special category, and it's called black. Now, when we click that, black French people. Now, remember, you're Afro-Asian. You are not African, you are Afro-Asian. And what happens is, you become what? Marginalized. Right? So you're pushed aside. So when I say, computer, show me fucking French people, the computer says, white supremacy rules, fuck you. So what did the court say? Because I'm still in America. So that means I'm still an American. So I'm viewing from an American system point of view. Now watch this.
Apologists joined forces to publish a book and CD both titled Fuck France, the General Alliance Against Racism and for the Respect of French and Christian Identity, took them to criminal court in Paris and charged them with public insult and incitement to discrimination, hatred, or violence. That's usually reserved for stuff against minorities, again by white people. So after 5 years, the court finally came to their verdict. It claimed that white people are not considered native to France under French law, so they couldn't be found guilty. The court said that the native French as a group does not.
Under their own law, under the own white supremacist law that they rule over these black people with, they're not even French.
Cover any reality, legally, historically, biologically, or sociologically.
Let's hear that again.
So, after 5 years, the court finally came to their verdict. It claimed that white people are not considered native to France under French law, so they couldn't be found guilty. The court said that the native French as a group does not cover any reality, legally, historically, biologically, or sociologically.
Listen to that.
Legally, historically, biologically, or
listen to that.
Claimed that white people are not considered native to France under French law, so they couldn't be found guilty. The court said that the native French as a group does not cover any reality, legally, historically, biologically, or sociologically. Sorry.
So what are these people? They're a people group that are what? What exactly do the Palestinians call the Israeli over there? What do they call them? Can't think of it right now. Oh man. Occupiers. So that means a foreign occupier is sitting around in France calling themselves native to France, calling themselves French people.
And that kind of goes off of what I said before, and what I'll continue to say, is that our existence offends others. So Europeans or whites' existence.
Go home! Wouldn't that be the bottom line? Hey, everybody go back to your original fucking home and stop oppressing other people. Where do the Caucasians go back to? Don't even give me that Caucasus Mountain shit. That's a fucking myth. The French. Where do these people come from? Wales, the people of Wales don't even belong there. They crawled out of some fucking island. They crawled out of a hole in the ground from an island that's called a Phantom Island.
Offensive to others. So anytime we try to assert ourselves as a group that we do exist, we do have rights, that is interpreted by non-whites as supremacism.
You do have rights. Go home. Go home and exert your rights on yourself. If you come from an island in the sea, go find it. If you come from hell, crawl back. More wars. More wars in the years of white supremacy than ever found on the earth combined.
Or racism. So, but technically it is racism, but the words got twisted up to racism means that you hate everybody outside your race. It's just not true. It's ruled that whites or the white race is in no way a legal component of the quality of the French, and that apparently the native white French do not constitute a group of people according to the 1881 Act on Freedom.
What does Deuteronomy 32 say? A people that are not. How many times have I told you? I can't believe somebody sent me this. That's such a blessing. You have moved me to jealousy, so I shall enslave you with a people that are not. A foolish people. These people are so foolish. In their own courts, they've stated, we're not even a people. When they say that you're a fucking monster, they've also admitted, well, you're a monster that God created, and we stole your land, but we're the real monsters, and we're not even a people group. We're not! They're saying they're not even a fucking people group!
Twist it up to racism means that you hate everybody outside your race. It's just not true. It's ruled that whites or the white race is in no way a legal component of the quality of the French, and that apparently the native white French do not constitute a group of people according to the 1881 Act on Freedom of the Press. I think it's a female judge, said in this trial we were pushed to consider the concept of anti-white racism and the question of whether the white French represent a group defined by law. It says according to this law, indigenous groups are encouraged to maintain and strengthen their own institutions, cultures, and traditions that gives them a right to remain distinct and prohibits discrimination against them. So white American Indians, Australian Aborigines, New Zealand's tribal people are considered native to the respective places. Certain high-ranking officials do not consider white people native to Europe or in fact anywhere on the planet. Similar to if you're American, you know what I'm talking about. I think most of my audience is American. As you hear the nonsense that you're not a Native American, and like I mentioned in the last video, that if you were born here and your parents and your grandparents were born here, then you are technically a Native American.
Okay, well, I'm going to say this. I'm sure the French white people said the same thing. But technically, by law, you're not. You're a fucking European that colonized the people that were already living here. Now here's the idiot's fucking point of view. Hey, if the black people in France that you fucking taught them, they arrived there on boats, right? But the court just said they're fucking native to France and the whites aren't. Guess what the courts here in America are gonna say? They're going to say the blacks here are native and that the whites aren't. That the whites aren't American. That they're European. But then when it goes back to what homeland are they from, they become what? A non-group. A people that are not. Do you see how the Bible is constantly based on the court's decision in the wicked land? Even the decision about Emmanuel and the government always being on his shoulder. Anybody know how that little boy in Kentucky's doing right now?
And then you go and take it a step further and say that, well, okay, let's say I'm not native to here. Well, we fought for this land, right? And you can even say that all of the non-Europeans that are flooding into Europe and eventually here to the United States, if they displace us and they gain political control, well then good for them, because you know what? We were defeated, and so we can't bitch and we can't whine. Sorry for the profanity, but you can't anymore because we will have done it to ourselves.
I'm sorry. There are people that get paid a lot of money when their sports teams defeated that bitch and whine. All right, can you can bitch whine about some things, but you can't and bitch and whine about your land being taken from you? We didn't lose the land in a war. We shared our land in a contractual agreement which you broke. See, you've been taught a very biased perspective of history. We allowed you. You fucking came here starving. For some reason, you never leave that out of any story. The Pilgrims couldn't hunt. The Pilgrims couldn't plant food. The Pilgrims came over and started eating themselves. How does anybody fucking forget this? Then what? Then the Indians helped them. The Aboriginal people helped them. They taught them farming. Till they found out they couldn't farm. Their skin was cursed. Then they remembered what their ancestors said. And that's when these people decided to enslave you and make you forget your history, so you wouldn't remember who your oppressor was at that time.
So down the road, we can't say, well, we were the Native Americans. No, we just allowed it to happen. You know, the Native Americans, as they call them, were fighting each other. And then all of a sudden, they were fighting this big group called Europeans. And they lost. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm more...
Oh my God. That is such a biased perspective of history. Alright, well... So... There's no such thing as white native French people. Native white French people. Oh, we're going down from here. Literally concerned. Have you ever heard of Egypt's Imhotep, biblical Joseph? Considering the similarities between the two, I think it deserves a serious investigation. Also, Imhotep's tomb is found with nobody. I checked YouTube for info, but not too many people are talking about it, which pisses me off because the lie that's being pushed that Joseph's tomb was found in Egypt with light-skinned statues. Fair point. Darlene, Alex, wondering if you had any interest, you or this guy, let us find the truth, had already passed this on to you, the Rhineland bastards who put to death in Germany camps. Also, I found this by Audrey Fishner. Here, change it. American people. Right. Oh, Google knows what I'm looking for, so they're going to play with me. Alright, so every time you see a picture, it's diversified. Babylonian diversified. Right? The melting pot with Caucasian Europeans added now. So, of course, if you type in American Indian, you're not going to find yourself there either. Images. Alright, now, here's where the game is played. We'll open two new Google shit boxes, right? And one we'll just say black. It's funny when shit pops up when you type in shit stuff. Okay, so type in black American people, and then all of a sudden, you can truly find black people, right? Now, type in American Indian, and this is what you see, right? And then you go to the new window, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Black. Black American Indian. Now, you do see darker skinned Indians and you see black skinned Indians here. Now, here I'm going to present a question. How come I have to hit black, type in the word black, to see dark skinned American Indians? Or black people that are classified as American Indians? When I type in American, why do I have to type in black American to see black people? And this is the same thing that happened in France, but the what? The rapper, and social activist or socialist, however he was self-titled, or I mean, however the population titles him, he fought back. And he sued. And he made white French people say that white French people are not native to France in any way, shape, or form through any book or any form of history. He is their king.
For Europeans not even immigrating to North America.
So, we were looking for Audrey Fishner, right? So, we'll type that in. Yeah, what am I looking for again? I'm looking for Island Bend. Also, I found this by Audrey Fisher. Picture worth $1,000. Where's a brown skinned boy wearing swastika, Germany. Story of. Does not begin to tell the story of remarkable life of J. Massaquoi. Mr. Massaquoi's former managing editor of Ebony magazine has now told the story himself in his new book, Destined to Witness Growing Up Black in Nazi Germany. And let's just type that up, Destined to Witness. Let's see if we can see this image that she wants us to see. Come on, Google. Okay, so there's a richer picture down here. And there you have the picture she's showing you. You know, I can't tell if these other kids have the swastika on them, you know, but you can see that the young man does. And you know, he tells you, this is a book destined to witness, you know, and this is your own people telling you his story in Nazi Germany. Alright, let me cut some of these down. Yeah. That one's a trip, man. Alright, so let's go back to... Whoa, too far in. There we go. Alright. Yeah, but it's not the truth. Greetings. It's not for. Alright, so I guess that's most of the private messages that are pretty good that we haven't covered lately. Now, now, I was looking for a comment that was kind of like this. It was short though, short and sweet. It says, Lex, I was reading First Maccabees chapter 13, 28 and 29, and stated that the last son of the Maccabees built 7 pyramids facing each other, and it made me think of the Valley of Mexico and Tikal and Teotihuacan, and how looking at the pyramids with images of people in suits and ships on them, the FM elephant remains in the Alabama, and the Black Belt area, an elephant remains in Mexico, not mammoth, but actual elephants. So he brings up a good point of the pyramid structures that are throughout South America, and who might have, Valley of Mexico, Central America. And he also brings up a good point of bones of elephants being found and the locations of them being on this side of the world, when they tell you constantly all the elephants came out of Africa. Alright, so thanks. This person thinks I'm a loser, and then, gotta love that. I cannot see the one I'm looking for. Somebody had said, mentioned Mars Hill from the book of Acts, chapter 17, that Mars Hill is actually in North Carolina, and that one was one I wanted to see. Another thing, if there are people that are of Spanish descent, I was wondering if while you're watching you might know of this. I work with a guy from Durango, which is South Mexico, and he tells me, we were swapping information, and he tells me about the Aztecs had a song, or the Mexicans have a song about the Aztecs, where in the song it talks about that the Aztecs were the youngest of the 12 tribes, or something of that nature. But it stated that it's a Mexican folk song, so if anybody knows about that, gladly share, and send us a message. There are lots of interesting messages. There wasn't too many that I wanted to highlight, except for the men on the East Coast, the men on the West Coast, going over their lesson. I have not watched the lesson yet. I can't say that I agree with everything in the lesson, but I think it's wonderful that they understand their heritage. That's the important thing. You know, does it truly matter if we mix up all these ancient cultures and can't figure out if they're Israelites or not? Well, no. Not really. Right now, our battle is white supremacy and separation from it. Now, we can pretend our battle is physical, but it's truly mental. We need to be able to separate from this system. And although it is a physical battle of leaving, it's truly the mental battle. Things that are comfortable keep us anchored. When you and someone you are dating, when everything is uncomfortable between you two, you usually break up. So, things here are very uncomfortable. So I think that it is time for us to separate from it. You know, I understand a lot of people have different opinions, but the more we talk about it, I'm going to try to show you different people's opinion where they say the exact same thing. Separation is best.